Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. I want to thank our sponsors, Mallinckrodt Pharmaceutical, and this is really exciting, Gemini Beauty. And it's really exciting today because one of our guests is the founder of Gemini Beauty, Joann Zehenni. And we're going to talk to Joann today and her sister, Jennifer. Jennifer is a lupus patient, and this family has a lot of autoimmune issues, and that was part of the inspiration for Gemini Beauty and for how they give back. And so I'm going to talk to Joann first, just for a second. Tell me a little bit about Gemini Beauty. I have all the products here, right here. They're incredible, and your packaging is amazing. How old were you when you started this company?
I was 15, and then it launched when I was 17, and then I'm turning 18 this month, or in June. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, over a 2-year process. And Gemini Beauty, I didn't even know exactly what products I wanted, but I did know I wanted the overarching theme to be beauty for a cause. And one of those causes is helping the lupus community because of how it's affected my family and myself and my sister. So that's kind of the big thing of Gemini Beauty, is trying to help a greater community and a greater cause.
And tell me, are the products, are they specifically focused a little bit? I know lupus patients have a lot of skin issues and things like that. How does the company help remedy that?
So each product is dedicated to a member of my family, and because we all have very sensitive skin, it's all about calming the skin and also healing the skin barrier. So I think a big problem, for at least what I have from my own experience, for lupus patients, it's always about a troubled skin barrier and having dull skin. So each product has different fruits and vegetables to heal your skin barrier and then also add a glow, which I've always had a problem with. And I think it's just something fun to add to your skincare routine.
Amazing. All right, we're gonna come back to you a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about how you sisters have supported each other and how that's happened. But as always, I have to get my lupus story out up front. So Jennifer, tell me a little bit about your story. And let me actually talk about your company too. You started a company called TeachPlayLearn, which is an education concierge, which is sort of the super in thing to need right now, right? Especially during COVID. But so I want to talk to you about that, because I know part of your story, part of your lupus story, is really how that company came to be. So take me back a little bit. Take me back to your lupus diagnosis.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, both my kind of career story and lupus story run parallel to each other. I would say about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I started having a lot more what now I know are symptoms. At the time, I didn't know. I was battling with a lot of fatigue. I was frequently sick. Had a lot of joint pain. I started getting eye ulcers, which I'll get to in a second. And I thought, hey, I'm a classroom teacher. I'm exposed to germs all day long. Like this, of course I'm tired. Of course I'm sick. Of course, this is kind of comes with the job sometimes, especially
What
working
age
with
were
the
you
little
teaching
ones.
at the time? Yeah. What age were
At
you
the
teaching?
time I started in kindergarten. Yeah, at the time I started in kindergarten, and then over the years I worked in a number of different classrooms all the way through high school age. So I've had the privilege of teaching a variety of different grade levels, which has been really fun and wonderful. And so it was very mild at first, certainly not on anyone's radar, certainly not showing up in any labs anywhere. And but it was just like, oh, well, Jen, she's busy. She likes to burn the candle at both ends. Of course, she's, a little rundown. And so I was also a grad student at the time. It was a lot. Then fast forward a few years, and the symptoms started getting a little louder. The eye ulcer, I had one specifically in my right eye that was more peripheral ulcerative keratitis. So it kind of actually thinned the cornea and wrapped itself around my cornea, and the eye was swollen, and it was, don't recommend Googling it.
Yeah.
And
and I'm assuming that's constant irritation and pain, right?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, it's like a canker sore on your eyeball. I mean, it's awful. My heart goes out to anybody in the community who has eye involvement in any way. And so I started, that's where rheumatology kind of came into my world of like, well, we've tried fortified antibiotics, we've tried, X, Y, and Z, nothing's really working. And so I had seen some of the lovely specialists up at Stanford. I'd seen some of the lovely specialists at UCLA. Dr. Wallace came into my world. He ran his tests, and ultimately not a lot showed up on my labs at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, we think this is autoimmune, but what specifically, not sure. And initially the diagnosis was thought to be Sjogren's. And, just given dry skin, eye involvement,
Yeah.
more than likely that's probably what we're talking about, just early stages. I went through a number of different tests and over the years, and slowly kind of symptoms started to get louder. And then I started getting regular eye ulcers like every month. And then I developed this like malar butterfly rash on my face. And the fatigue was louder, the joint pain was louder, the just inflammation in general was louder. And so we got to the point where I ended up having an eye biopsy, which confirmed another autoimmune disease called Ocular Sycatricial Pemphigoid, or OCP. It's a subtype of mucous membrane pemphigoid, or MMP. And as you know,
I can't even imagine how to spell that, let alone.
That's one I've also don't recommend.
In all my years,
rare.
In this business, I've never heard of that one.
It's a rare one. Also, typically affects females, or those with double X chromosomes, and also typically affects people, older in age or later in life. And so I was definitely unusual. So I found a wonderful institute in Massachusetts who is somewhat familiar with this disease. They did an eye biopsy. They confirmed that it was in fact OCP. And so, but then I had these rashes on my face and my skin, and there was this photosensitivity, and it was like kind of, okay, well, we know autoimmune can travel in packs, sometimes more than two, sometimes more than three. And so, went back to Dr. Wallace, went through all the labs again, and we started seeing markers for lupus. And then those markers kind of faded a little bit. So then we're like, well, maybe it's not lupus. Maybe it's mixed connective tissue something. Okay, no, there's lupus again. Okay, well, maybe not. So it's like, as I'm sure you can relate, it's an evolving diagnosis. Like, you get your kind of foundation.
Right.
But as science improves, and also as the body changes and hormones change, I mean, it's a moving target, which can be both frustrating and also hopeful, right? It's kind of an interesting development.
My diagnosis changed 4 or 5 years ago. My daughter was diagnosed with a genetic mutation called Copa Syndrome. I think I've talked about it on the show before, but it's completely sort of altered my diagnosis because it was genetic, and I had it, and it explained a lot of kind of why my lupus may have been a little bit different than, and why I didn't fit into the mold as well as I should have, or as well as most people do. And I think, it is sort of that interesting. In my case, it really opened up a whole new world of possibilities in terms of how I can treat this and how I can, what my prospects are moving forward, et cetera. So I think the evolution of diagnosis, like you said, it really can be scary, but it can also really, the more they unpeel the onion, the more they figure out. And I think that generally should be a positive.
I agree. I think initially in my journey, in the early stages, it's easy to get, especially when you have kind of this invisible chronic illness where everyone's like, you don't look sick, but you know how you feel, and you're not feeling 100% yourself. And yet doctors are saying, no, your labs look fine, go home, get out of here. You're like the healthiest patients I have. And, it's all relative, but something's not right. And so when you finally get a diagnosis, for me, it felt kind of like a breath of fresh air of like, see, I'm not crazy. Like, there is something here. And yet at the same time, you're like, wait, why am I defending my limitation? Let me take a step back.
Right.
It's like, it's a complex situation to get used to a diagnosis, and also not let it define you, not let it become part of your identity. But it is undeniably part of your life. And so how to live with it and how to let it evolve and kind of hang out in that uncomfortable space as it evolves, as science evolves, as new circumstances evolve, right? Like I'm pregnant now, and that was a whole new curveball to my kind of autoimmune journey. So
all right, we're going to get to the pregnancy.
We're a little off track there.
We're going to I want to touch on that too, but I want to know, Joann, so 10 years ago, 7, 8, 9 years old. How did this affect you? And do you remember that time when Jennifer was getting diagnosed, and then obviously sort of growing up through that? What impact did that have on you?
I remember even so vividly when my sister and I would be on the trampoline, we'd ask her to come and she'd be like, I can't, like my joints hurt. And then we would be beyond confused, being like, you don't have a runny nose, you're not coughing. So like, why can't you come with us? And I remember that happened we were very pushy. So that happened on several occasions, but just even little things like that, I remember. And then, as I grew up and she kind of explained her situation and I was able to comprehend exactly or generally what lupus is and what she's been going through, it kind of clicked. And she's right in that it's so invisible. Like she would never, like she wouldn't complain in front of us, but we'd kind of see that something is off, or she'd mention something here or there that, she can't come on the trampoline, or she's not feeling well, she'll come to the house another day. Like you don't really see it because for us being sick is like when we were little, generally it'd be like coughing, sneezing, having a fever, but she didn't have that. So we didn't understand that. So I think growing up in a family with people who had lupus or had variations of lupus and it was kind of ever evolving, it was kind of hard to understand. And I think now I know like some of my friends, their family members have lupus, or my friend's baby brother, he's 1 month and he just got lupus. So I feel like now I'm kind of able to understand and talk to them about it. But then I didn't really understand, but now I do. So
right,
yeah, it was
right. Now, so Jennifer, so you were teaching at the time. How did the lupus then affect your career path?
Yeah. So, I'm a stubborn individual. I didn't let it.
We all are. All lupus patients. That is
Yeah.
also I think it's a symptom, or
Maybe
a
so.
trait.
Maybe so.
Anyway. Yeah.
Fair. And I think that actually can serve us quite well. It's just, it has a dark side too. But, and so, yeah, so I didn't let it for many years. I think in some ways I was also in denial about that I had a thing that I had to slow down for, or that I had to be more mindful about. And until eventually it got so loud that I had no choice but to. And so I taught in the classroom for I think 5 or 6 years up in Northern California. And then I came down to Southern California to be close to family, and taught here for a couple of years or so. Also got into kind of administration at the time as well. And so all of this is kind of running parallel to, my symptoms progressively getting worse. I was very fortunate that I had incredible administrators at all the schools that I worked at who were very supportive of me. And when things got at its loudest, I also had an incredible student teacher who, she it hit at the time of the year where she was taking the reins of the classroom anyway, and she was a dynamo. And so fortunately, our kids were well taken care of, and our principal was very supportive of me. And so that's really when I had to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and step back. And so I always had my own kind of consulting and tutoring practice, kind of private practice on the side as I was teaching. It's just something I enjoyed doing. And so when I kind of left a more traditional classroom environment or school environment as administrator, I still had my consulting and tutoring going. And it was just me, hustling around the city, driving around. And, it's for anybody out there who are in the kind of private tutoring world, it's a tiring, and it can be lonely. And,
Sure.
It's a journey in its own. And so I started collaborating on a summer project. It was kind of a pop-up, exploratory, experimental learning center for all ages kind of project. And I started collaborating with really wonderful individuals. I just kind of tapped the shoulders of some specialists I knew along the way and said, hey, I've got this idea. It could go absolutely nowhere, but are you interested in giving it a go? And they graciously signed on. We had a fun many months together, and ultimately that project concluded. But we had some families we were serving at the time. And they're like, well, what do you mean it's a pop-up? Like, where are you going? And so then TeachPlayLearn evolved from there, where, we became this kind of holistic, whole family consulting practice that also had these dynamo educators that were providing, customized services of all kinds. And now, 7, 8 years later, we're still going, still evolving, and it's been a lovely complement to being able to also pursue my passion and my love in education, because that's very much my soul's work, but at the same time be able to carve out the time that I need to also take care of my wellness, because they go hand in hand. You can't serve if you're not taking care of yourself. And so I've been very fortunate that I've been able to stay really involved in my work, and my work has been flexible. But it certainly had its bumps along the way getting to that point. So
Sure. Yeah.
it's
No,
not been
I mean,
easy.
I think, sorry, I think what you're saying too is really valuable. And I think our audience really can hear that. It's like, you don't necessarily have to give up all of what you're doing or all of your passion. You may just have to reinvent yourself a little bit to
Exactly.
find a solution that allows you to also take care of yourself at the same time. I think
Absolutely.
that's a really, really important message. I want to take a quick break. I know we have lots more to talk about, but I want to, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the pregnancy. We're going to talk more about Gemini Beauty. So we'll be right back after this message.
Lupus LA's fellowship program is an essential part of ensuring the training of future rheumatologists. The nation is experiencing a serious shortage of pediatric rheumatologists. Today, there are approximately 300,000 children diagnosed with rheumatic conditions in the United States, but only about 250 practicing pediatric rheumatologists to meet this tremendous need.
Welcome back to the Your Story, Our Fight podcast from Lupus LA. We're talking to Jennifer Zehenni and Joann Zehenni. Joann is of Gemini Beauty, and we're going to talk more about that in a second. And we were just talking to Jennifer about her lupus and about her symptoms. And so, first of all, congratulations on your pregnancy.
Thank you.
You're at the very finish line, right? About a month or two left. So
not even two. Yeah, we're 3 to 4 weeks away.
Wow.
Kind of hard to believe.
This is it. Count to any minute now. Oh God. Be prepared. So
Right.
I guess my question is, I know that's always a very tricky decision for a lupus patient about getting pregnant. So walk me through kind of the decision-making process. And I also know pregnancy for lupus patients can be sort of a blissful period where the lupus disappears for a while, or it can be the opposite and be super difficult. So tell me a little bit about your pregnancy experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. So, my journey has been a long one. It is suspected due to kind of autoimmune, plus the 2.5 years that I was on certain immunosuppressive medications, plus many years of birth control, all of that affected kind of ovarian reserve. And so that means the amount of eggs that you actually have each month is much smaller given the age that you are. And so we tried, my husband and I tried IVF multiple times. It did not work. We weren't able to get a single embryo. And we were essentially told that we should really consider getting a donor egg, and maybe that would work. And then I said, okay, well, assuming that we can get pregnant, tell me more about kind of autoimmunity, lupus specifically, OCP specifically, and pregnancy. And I got a lot of general rule of thirds, right? So a third get better, a third get worse, a third stay the same. And there wasn't,
just sounded like Dr.
a
Wallace
lot
right there. That's
right?
exactly, that's a quote from Dr. Wallace. I know it. Okay.
Him and many others. So I
Right,
went
okay.
to, as many second and third opinions as I could, because I am also, I'm an education nerd. I like to do research. I enjoy, reading journals. Like I'm not a scientist. I'm not claiming to be one. And so certainly fact check me on some of these things. But, I'm a patient that's very curious and likes to kind of take the stuff into my own hands and see if I can figure things out for my own body. And I had tremendous amount of improvement to my symptoms and management overall, based on some, lifestyle modification type things, whether that was fitness, paying attention to my body of, okay, today's a day I can push it, today is a day I'm going to need more of a yoga type workout, whether that was diet, done a tremendous amount over the years with, certain key supplements that are informed by labs, and, playing with elimination diets and AIP protocols, and you name it, I've done it. and it's been really effective for me, which is really lovely. So that was also part of, kind of one layer of the onion around pregnancy as well, is also paying attention to food and lifestyle and supplements. And, I have MTHFR, so therefore that means I need a methylated folate, and maybe I need some glutathione, and da 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 da.
Right.
We could talk for hours about all that kind of stuff, right? So, so I had that layer going. Then I had the, low ovarian reserve. So how do I improve egg quality layer going, and all the research that was going into that. I had the layer of, okay, how do I preserve a biological option with exploring IVF and just trying to retrieve an egg and freeze it. And then there was the layer of, well, if I could get pregnant, can I stay pregnant? And what does that mean for throughout the pregnancy? Do I need to be exploring like getting on treatment now before pregnancy? Or if, God forbid, symptoms emerge while I'm pregnant, what treatment is our game plan? And try to kind of take care of all these layers. Fortunately, I was in remission before I got pregnant. So I wasn't in active treatment as I was going through this IVF stuff. But the IVF medications for me personally did kind of kick the hornet's nest a little. My inflammation numbers started to rise a little. I started feeling some of my older symptoms again. But I was lucky that it didn't trigger full-on flares. And so that was really nice. I ended up, like I said, it didn't work. So I ended up taking 3 to 6 months to just kind of try to clean the body of all of that and get everything to calm down again.
Right.
And and so we tried naturally for the first time, and we got pregnant. And all of my doctors scratched their heads, and they were like, I don't understand, but
I love those stories. That is, because it just goes to show you that as much as these doctors know a ton, that ultimately the body is a little bit of a mystery, and you should never give up hope on something like that, because that's a terrific story. I love it.
Yeah, well, I will
go ahead.
Share a little bit more. So,
Sure.
Not to be a Debbie Downer, but I think the truth is important to share for anybody who's in a similar space. So I actually ended up losing that pregnancy, but it did show me that it was possible, right? And to your point, I mean, talk about renewed faith. It was like, well, I deeply respect science. I'm so grateful for the amazing doctors I've had in my world. And like you said, you don't always know. Everybody's body and biochemistry is so unique and different. And so it was obviously tremendously heartbreaking, but it was also very hope-filling. And a few months later, we tried again, also naturally, and got pregnant. And that is the pregnancy you see now. So it happened twice, not just once.
That's an even more amazing story, right?
Yeah. And so if there's anyone in the community who is being told that this is impossible, I certainly don't want to give anyone any false hope. I don't know each individual person's story, but there is always hope in my mind, at least. And we feel very, very lucky. This little one has been a miracle baby. But so now that I was pregnant, it was kind of like, well, okay, so what's this journey going to be like? Because I'm here in that rule of thirds. What third am I going to be? And much to my surprise, but also, again, very grateful, it has been an absolutely healing experience. It's wild. Like, my labs have never looked better. My eye specialists were like, we've never seen your eyes look better. I have kind of the typical uncomfortable pregnancy experience that, a lot of, birthing people have, but, but that's all typical and normal, which is the first time, I think, maybe in decades, that I have had typical and normal in my health charts. So, it's been a real blessing.
That's fantastic. Joann, are you ready to be Aunt Jo?
I'm so ready.
She's gonna be an amazing aunt.
We are so excited. We've been talking about this for so long, and now that it's like, we keep thinking that the baby's gonna be born near our birthday, because it's only 2 weeks apart of the suspected date. So thinking we're gonna share a birthday with another person. So
because we got to explain. There's another sister, right? So just explain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so I have a twin.
You have a twin, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have a twin, and so our birthday's June 11th, and the baby should be coming 2 weeks after that. So my sister and I are like, kind of praying that we also can like share a birthday, but also like the whole family's just been laughing about it. And of course it's like another Gemini in the family and like, or maybe Gemini. But we're so excited.
Yes,
Yeah.
both our babies came early, so
Yeah. My hospital
and
bag
right,
is
you
packed
know,
just in case.
yes, you got to have the bag packed for sure. But
Mhm.
that's incredible. I think that is going to give a lot of people a lot of hope, and those stories are just that's what it's all about. And I think this child's obviously going to be super loved and super important, and not know how important, I think, until later on.
Yeah.
Um,
Have you had any guests who've talked about kind of, I know it's one of many theories, but there was in the last handful of years, there was some growing research around kind of people with the double X chromosome, and it not being silenced, having kind of overactive immune systems in combination with like the placenta's evolutionarily, like, how do they describe it? Like essentially the placenta suppresses your immune system so your body doesn't
right,
reject itself and the baby, right? But then
right,
over the 100 million years of evolution, the double X chromosome, which is predominantly why it affects autoimmune disease affects women. This is one of many theories.
right.
It kind of became overactive to counterbalance to survive, this suppressed immune system during the pregnancy state, and that is, in a very simplified version, one theory as to why some women or people who are who are pregnant actually don't have these flare-ups
The
and
symptoms,
symptoms during
yeah.
pregnancy.
We haven't had I've definitely talked to people on the show who have been pregnant or had who went through the lupus pregnancy, and
Mm-hmm.
I would say, just anecdotally, I do think a lot of women feel better during the actual pregnancy.
So
Getting pregnant,
fascinating.
after pregnant, it's sort of, I mean, obviously your body is sort of turned upside down, even in a
Right.
healthy person. And so I do think there's a lot of study going on, especially now that genetics is playing such a huge part,
Mm-hmm.
and stem
It's
cells, and
fascinating.
we're going back to these sort of single cell concepts, and really the technology is there now to really see sort of what's going on in each of these cells. And I think over the
Mm-hmm.
next X number of years, there's going to be a significant new understanding of kind of sort of some of the mysteries of lupus. I mean, at least, that's what we're hoping for. And we're starting to see it. And I think that's really exciting. But I think, the journey that you've gone through is really important to that research,
Mm-hmm.
and I what I always find interesting is a lot of lupus researchers I've met have not met lupus patients. And I think that's
Interesting.
another real mission of this show, is to let the lupus doctors and researchers and scientists understand the perspective of the patient,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think patients really understand how much of an impact that can make with a researcher. I mean, I've seen it
Absolutely.
personally many, many times. And I think it's when you can see that motivation, and they can understand what the patient is going through. That's a really, really big carrot and stick kind of approach. And I think, or not carrot and stick, I don't think that's right, but it's a real incentive to
Yeah.
them to sort of really understand and figure this out for the patients who are suffering. And I think that's
It's
important.
so beautiful. Lupus LA is doing such, that kind of advocacy work and really trying to build bridges between, kind of all the people in the conversation. Because at least for me as a patient, it would have been so valuable. Like I deeply respect and understand why, some of my doctors wouldn't necessarily go into, talking about the different theories and things with me. Certainly don't want to promise any false hopes on something that's very much still a theory, but it would have been tremendously helpful had doctors or even research been out there that shows, hey, you know what, heads up, if you have an autoimmune disease, you may want to consider freezing your eggs early, because you may or
Hmm.
may not, affect your ovarian reserve later in life. It may or may not go into menopause earlier than when one typically would later in life. Or hey, there's these cool clinical trials going on around estriol, which is an estrogen that's produced in the third trimester of your pregnancy, and that may be really promising of a therapy instead of immunosuppressives. Like, there's so much out there that's just fascinating and interesting, and I feel like it doesn't always get into the hands of patients, or not in a way that's relatable or easy to understand, and vice versa, is not necessarily having that conversation with patients either. So I'm very grateful there's organizations like yours.
Well, we appreciate that. I mean, that's really is, we're finding building those bridges is super important. And I'm gonna make this transition, but I'm gonna loop this back to Gemini Beauty for a second, because I think when we get companies involved, companies can be so important to help us deliver our message. And just over the years, we've had so many amazing companies get involved with Lupus LA, and when the ones that I think really can drive the conversation forward are companies like yours, Joann. I think, I want you to talk just a little bit about how you're working with Lupus LA. I know you're sponsoring this podcast, which I'm super grateful for, but tell me a little bit about the concept, because I know we've sort of been working on this for the last few months, and sort of how's the company going to integrate that give back and that charity component into its growth?
Yeah, so I think right now, because I've just started, we're pretty small right now, and I hope that as the company grows and that I grow, that I can further the reach of talking about the lupus community and Lupus LA. So I'm trying to, I'm helping in kind of like a small scale now, but I hope one day it can be a really big scale. And just for now, like, a percentage of profits will be donated to Lupus LA, and that will go towards research or really anything the organization does with it. And I love sponsoring this podcast, and I love just like listening to the stories. I've been listening to the last few, and I think even though I just have borderline lupus, and it's very different from like Jennifer's experience or from the people I've listened to experiences, I think it's just like Lupus LA provides that hope for people, like Jennifer was saying. And I think just me helping in any way I can, even if it's just donating profits, I think it reaches just so much further than me, because it just provides hope. And I think that's why I was so drawn to Lupus LA originally, not only because we know Dr. Wallace, but because when I just looked at the website, I saw that there's so many people sharing their stories, and it created this community that I want to be a part of, and that I love being a part of. And that's more important to me than, just donating money, but just telling people about Lupus LA, or just being part of it is enough for me. So I love
Absolutely.
it.
And I know you mentioned, I know you sort of has struggled with you haven't gotten the official lupus diagnosis, but it's very interesting to me. Twins, I think, are always very interesting, because I've known multiple twins that one has lupus, the other doesn't. And they're fascinating from a research perspective. But, as you're sort of in that unofficial world, I assume Jennifer is an inspiration to you as you sort of try to figure out your symptoms and your path.
For sure. Even just listening to her story, but also when she was talking about her butterfly rash when I was younger, and I saw the way that her skin reacted and how she would get dry spots or redness on her face, and then I saw similarities. I had a bit of the butterfly rash, but I had more different symptoms on my skin by having sensitive skin. So I saw that, and then I think that's kind of what sparked my mom and I talking about it, and my parents. And then that's when I went to Dr. Wallace, and then that's when he said, I'm just on the cusp of it. So I have the symptoms of having sensitive skin and having that redness and dullness, but it's not official. So really all I have to do is be very careful. And that's why I got into skincare, because I wanted to prevent anything from escalating more than it has been. And even now, when I spend time in the sun, I see more of a reaction. Like, I have it now, but thank God for skincare and a little bit of makeup. I'm able to cover it, and using Gemini Beauty, especially the moisturizer, every day, and moisturizing.
Wait, I have it right here, and it's pink, right?
Yes, it's pink,
but
and it has 6 different fruits in it. So I love that. My grandma, you can open it, smell it.
I wanna.
But
almost
so, like,
clean enough to eat.
it smells really good.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, it has 6 different fruits, taking from my Russian and Lebanese heritage, using teas in it as well. I wanted to create a moisturizer that can really just make your skin feel refreshed, because I struggled for so long. Like when I would smile, my skin would feel like dry and cracked. And that's an awful sign, and that's a bad sign. And that normally signifies that you need hydration and moisture in your skin. So I wanted to create products that target what I struggle with, that my friends and my family struggle with. And then skincare is like my savior. And it made me feel a lot better. And it's kind of like an everyday regimen, knowing that I'm taking care of myself so that, my lupus doesn't escalate at all. And it's kind of just a comfort for me.
I love that. I think it's very rare you see a company that has a mission, but also their product really is part of that mission. It's not just pick a company to give back to. It's about really figuring out what this population needs, and what, I'm assuming there's tens of millions of people who have skin issues that Gemini can help with. Tell me about the All You Need Eye Cream.
That one is mostly dedicated.
That one's a cool blue.
Yeah, it's a cool blue. So that one is more for my twin sister Catherine, because she struggled a lot with under eye bags. And also I think, I feel like the lupus community, all people, they go through something totally different, but also it's very tiring going through that every single day, like listening to Jennifer. And then you always need an eye cream to brighten your face and to look a lot more awake and hydrated. So I wanted to create an eye cream because I feel like, people with lupus or with a diagnosis, or, just someone who just wants something extra to their skincare routine, could always use an eye cream.
All right. And last but not least, we already talked about this today off camera, but the Daily Glow Serum. I don't know if my audience can see it. I know a lot of them are just listening, but this has it's like a total glitter, glistening type gold color. And
it's called Golden Jewels, so it's not actually glitter. So it is safe for skin. But I wanted something, because I struggled with dull skin for so long, and I hated that feeling. Not only was my skin dry, but also dull. So I created this serum that is supposed to give you a natural dewy look. And then also when you combine it with the moisturizer, it creates that super fresh glass skin look that I always wanted. And I feel like that's also such a big trend now. And I wanted hyaluronic acid, which is a main ingredient in it, to deeply hydrate the skin and to retain the water in your skin that it needs to be able to glow or just feel really healthy.
I mean, I don't know, at 18 years old, you are on your game, right? Joann. I will tell you that.
She's an inspiration.
Tell me what's coming next for Gemini Beauty.
So next, that's actually in development now. That will probably take a few months, but the next set of products are all, I want it to be anything to do with calming serums, moisturizers, but also I want to add some SPF, because I know that the lupus community and just everyone needs SPF to protect your skin, because the start of where I found out that I had sensitive skin was from the sun and getting sunburned, and I react really poorly to the sun. So I want to do something to kind of connect all of that together. And also the formulations, I want to make them even more unique and even more clean. And they're very clean now, but I want to keep going with that. And I just, I want it to be so natural you can eat it. So that will be the next run. So that'll be coming in a few months.
I love it. All right. Well, we are going to be talking about it on this show for many, many months and years to come. And I know watching your company grow, and Jennifer watching your baby grow. I mean, this is like, I'm telling you, it's a lot of growth, and it's a lot of important messaging. And we are so happy to be connected to you guys. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And we're just so excited to be working with Lupus LA. And I'm telling all my friends about it. And even my friends who they've been coming up to me recently, finding people in their family who have been recently diagnosed with lupus, or they know people, they are going to your site, and they told me, I even got texts last week that they love it. So thank you.
Excellent. Perfect. You made my day. All right. This is a fantastic love fest. Thank you guys. We're going to have you back, and we're going to do more conversations with you guys in the future. So thanks very much.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for your time. Absolutely.
On behalf of the entire team at Lupus LA, we thank you for joining the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Please tune in, spread the word, and come back for more inspiring lupus stories. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, wishing you good health, and to always remember, your story is our fight.